Still Poddable, Still Poddable. The Boston Celtics, Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Oh yeah! Still Poddable, Still Poddable. The Boston Celtics, Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Banana
Beat Robb, Jim, Packard, J. King.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable.
The Caesar on the court to get another ring.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable.
Everybody in the chat now sing.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Still Poddable, Still Poddable. The Boston Celtics, Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Oh yeah! Shut your ass up.
Welcome back, folks, to Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's internet. I am Sam J.M. Packard, sometimes cowboy, most time professional sports fan, joined by Brian B. Robb of MassLive.com and producer Sean Gauthier, if I believe the pronunciation is. This is the free episode. Still Poddable is a Monday through Friday podcast, mostly found on Patreon. We give you episodes every single day of the week. And so if you want more Still Poddable, go to patreon.com/Still Poddable. But today is the free episode. That means we are on the CLNS YouTube page. That also means we are brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app. If you want to save money on those two wonderful products, use the promo code CLNS, download those apps, and get money today. Now, some of you guys might be asking, Jam, why are you in a cowboy hat? And why do you have a terrible handlebar mustache? And the answer is, I went to a Halloween party last night. And yes, it's November. And so should there have been a Halloween party? Probably not. Was it also a joint birthday party? Sure. That's all I really got. The problem was I went to this party and I had this terrible facial hair. For those listening, I have just an awful handlebar mustache into chin strap. But I was meeting a lot of new people who just didn't know that it was like a visual goof. So they just all assumed that this was like my normal go-to look. It was a bad night. I had to do a lot of explaining. The visual goof didn't work. It was a tough situation.
What was it? What was the visual goof?
This looks ridiculous, B-Rob. What do you mean? What is the visual
part of the costume? Like, were you
I was a cowboy. I had like obviously this hat, got this little bolo tie going on, had some boots, a big old belt. Like, it was a pretty low effort costume, but mostly it was just the facial hair. And then I had a number of people ask me, like, is that your normal facial hair? I'm like, the visual goof didn't work.
And how long are you planning on keeping this facial hair?
Oh, it is being shaved immediately after the recording of this podcast. I
think you want to work off that, actually. I think that new job, that's what people are going to want to see in there.
I only kept it for this discussion of it, and then it will be quickly shaven after the podcast. But sorry to dilly and or dally. We are here to talk about the Boston Celtics. The week that was in the Boston Celtics. Let's just do a bit of a recap. Big win over the Milwaukee Bucks at home. Then a thrilling.
Is it now, though? Is it, though?
I don't know.
The lowly Bucks?
We'll get to the Bucks. The Bucks played the top of the league Cavs pretty well last night. So maybe we'll evaluate that Bucks win. Then they had the big comeback against the Pacers, but Celtics got their first loss of the year in overtime in Indiana. And then just the vicious Hornets invite the Celtics to town for two games. Friday night and Saturday night, a back-to-back, a rare home and home, not even home and home, just back-to-back in the same city. Baseball series. And we got some just, I wouldn't call them fisticuffs, but some strong feelings after Grant Williams violently body checks Jason Tatum. But the Celtics, it was actually two kind of closer games than I would have anticipated against the Hornets, but they found a way to pull them out in the end, kind of comfortably winning both games. Celtics are 3-1, start the year 6-1. B-Rob, well, I mean, what's the biggest takeaway coming off this week in Celtics?
It's Grant Williams taking
Enemy
away
number
any
one
goodwill he has in the city of Boston going forward. I don't know. Grant, the part of me feels for Grant, both teams that went to the finals trading you in one season. It's tough. He's a good guy. Me and you, Pack, we played Catan with Grant at one point.
Yeah.
He's a nice, fun nerd. With that said here, the lack of accountability after the fact from Grant Williams publicly is so dumb. Like, this would be nothing if he just said, like, you know what, my bad. I got into it. Like, I came at Tatum too hard, which he has a track record of doing, not with Tatum, but with other guys. That's one thing. If he owned it, then it's like, all right, it happened. Move on. Now you can laugh. But now the fact he was like, well, I didn't mean hurt, totally being like, no one came at me after the fact. It just makes him look so much worse. And now you see Tatum walking off the floor, not greeting him after the game on Saturday night, which I think speaks volumes.
It's also like very awkward with the pregame interviews of Grant, where he's like being friendly with the Celtics media. He's like, yeah, I'm going to have these guys over for wings afterwards. We're just going to hang out and we're like great friends. Well, then maybe don't body check Jason Tatum in the middle of the game. And I think initially I watched it back a couple times. No one really reacted to, or at least the broadcast didn't. And then as soon as you see the replay where it's just like, it is like a safety or like a linebacker covering over the middle, and he just basically takes out the body of Jason Tatum. I think I agree with you, B-Rob, that it's the lack of accountability. Grant Williams has a history of doing stuff on the court that he probably shouldn't have, whether it was the I'm going to make them both against Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs and then missing both, or it was the getting in the face of Jimmy Butler during the playoff series. I think that was game 2, and having that go horribly wrong. Yeah, it just afterwards, especially I think he did the interview with Caleb Burton of NBC Sports Boston wearing and this is coming from a guy with a dumb facial hair and a cowboy hat, a very ridiculous denim vest. Like, it doesn't help your cause when you say dumb things wearing a dumb outfit, is all I'll say.
Yeah, it was a tough look. And he has a history now of hard fouls against the Celtics. Like, he, in that game in Dallas last year, he had a really hard foul on Jaylen Brown that pissed Jaylen off. And Jaylen was, to his credit, I think was the first guy like really going after him after this situation with Tatum. And then when you even have Derek White, like the nicest man in like NBA
that
history,
was the
being
shocking part, shoving Grant Williams,
shoving that, and Derek saying after Friday night, like, what are you doing, Grant? When you lose Derek White, you lose the room, and that is, I think, what's happened now. And I don't know, like, time heals all wounds. This isn't gonna, I'm sure they'll eventually be fine, but it's just not for Grant. I don't know. Is he mad about the lack of a tribute video there? Like, we saw that. Did you guys see the Draymond rant on Twitter after the fact over the weekend? There was a lot. I mean, it's Draymond, so it's like something else, but there is Draymond and Tatum are tight. So I don't know. Like,
it's just rich for Draymond to lecture anyone about being overly violent.
It's like Draymond.
You choked Rudy Gobert and you punched your own teammate, and for you to criticize Grant for that seems like maybe it's the right message, but wrong messenger.
Yes.
Draymond was like, if you're going to be violent, it's supposed to be your own young teammates. You're
supposed to destroy the team.
Yeah, you're supposed to ruin the vibe for the entire season. Maybe this is a unifying thing for the Celtics. They certainly handled business on the court in 2, I would say, fairly comfortable games in which I think the Hornets are a better or more talented team than we've seen in past years. But I thought the Celtics played pretty solid basketball in both regards and were able to kind of win easily, pull away in the end. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I highly recommend picking Peyton Pritchard overs. That is the real moneymaker this season. And with Prize Picks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And so when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Pick now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposit and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play only $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts a selected projected lineup up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. A lot of fun this NBA season. Again, I'm highly recommending you go with the Peyton Pritchard overs. And if you want to do that today and save a little with Prize Picks, download the app, use code CLNS, and you get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. Prize Picks, run your game.
What did you think? Yeah, Tatum, especially in that like Saturday night, he didn't, he just did what he was supposed to do. Didn't try to like play for me. He did get he got the dunk and kind of like landed on Grant after the fact. That was a nice little subtle move in game. But how did you guys think about how he handled the situation? Like Jay King was down there and was asked Tatum good questions on Saturday night after the fact, and Tatum just pretty much sidestepped him, saying like, I don't want to talk about it at all. And then said, it wasn't a fuel for him, the fact that Grant did this on Friday night. Do you guys like that from Tatum from the standpoint, or would you rather be like, you know what, just like have him mouth off about it?
I like it because it feels authentic to Jason Tatum. Like, when have we ever seen Jason Tatum be like a very demonstrative, extremely like in your face, especially with other opponents? Like, yeah, he gets the most upset. I think we see Jason Tatum is like when he slams the ball, when he's like upset about referees, but he's never really been an in your face guy in terms of other people on his team. I think Grant, to give any reaction to Grant would be to give Grant exactly what he wanted. And so I feel like it's very much, it feels like Tatum, anytime he gets a hard foul, his go-to move is like pop up as quickly as possible. And he did that here. And so I feel like that was just authentic to him. That's what he does. And so a good response, not letting him be kind of fazed by it whatsoever. I would have been shocked if he like got up, and I would have been shocked if he punched Grant in the face. But I would even if he just got up and got in Grant's face after that, that's just not like what I see as Jason Tatum's kind of personality.
Yeah, and it also like brings back to like Joe's comments after the first game, just talking about like, yeah, he like, Tatum got back up, didn't milk it, went straight to the line, and like everyone had their own reaction. And yeah, Jam, you're right. Like that's just Tatum. He's just like, great, I'm gonna keep playing basketball now. Thank you for the for the free throws. Just kind of moves on.
And then he didn't even, for him not to totally acknowledge it at all. Like I said, not even giving Grant any air after the game, even on Saturday night, 24 hours later. On top of obviously not greeting him, most Celtics just not greeting Grant on the court after the fact. It is. I think honestly, that's a win for Tatum, because like he's being true to himself, and I think he just wants this behind him. Period. He doesn't want this to linger, and if he talked about it more, then it could obviously extend it even longer.
It's so far beneath him. Like, don't let Grant Williams, and I've been a big Grant Williams fan ever since like it was with the Celtics. Never going to forget this Game 7 against the Bucks. He was nice enough to play. Very like nerdy man, played Catan with me and B-Rob. But it's tomfoolery and ballyhoo of the negative variety that I can't get behind. And Tatum made him pay on the court. He lived at the free throw line for these past two games. 13 attempts on Friday night, 17 attempts on Saturday night. That was kind of helped out by Charles Lee deciding to foul many, many times down the stretch. Maybe it was a protest foul because the Hornets, I can't say LaMelo Ball plays the most disciplined of defense. He's certainly an extremely talented player on the offensive end. And the Celtics didn't do... I mean, he certainly like had some flashes, had some great moments there. I think Friday night he had a much better game than Saturday night, but scored 30 in both of them. B-Rob, what do you think about just like the Celtics' ability to slow down guys like LaMelo? They also felt like they had some tough slowing down fast guard like Tyrese Halliburton against the Pacers. I know I talked about this with Sam Sheehan on after that Pacers game. Drew is not necessarily he's known as this amazing defender, and he is an amazing defender, but he's not necessarily like the quick guard defensive person. And I think down the stretch in that Pacers game, we saw Peyton Pritchard get the assignment to kind of guard those fast guys. We saw a lot of Peyton Pritchard down the stretch of this game. What do you think about just the Celtics' like defensive approach to especially those quicker players like that, like LaMelo or like Halliburton?
Yeah, I mean I think over the years that's been just one of the team's weak spots on what they don't have many of them. But you're right, like Drew Holiday, his strength is the versatility and being able to guard up. But as he gets later in his 30s, I think we're going to see more and more like those assignments are going to go to Derek White or Peyton Pritchard. But yeah, with LaMelo, I thought they did a good job. I mean, this was kind of like business-like wins over the weekend, I feel like, against Charlotte. Coming out, making, the Hornets made a lot of threes, especially on that Friday night, but the Celtics withstood that. And then Saturday night came out with more defensive mentality. And I mean, they shot like shit in the second half of that game on Saturday night and still were able to get it done. And that's, I mean, it's not great. It's the Hornets. We're not going to, throw a parade for them here, but it's still, without Jaylen Brown in those games, like it's something. You're 6-1. You haven't lost a bad game yet. And so there's something to be said for that.
I think that what it highlights to me is just how important Peyton Pritchard is to this team. And like, he's playing phenomenal basketball, but if you just look at his stats, he's playing averaging close to like 30 minutes a game at this point. He is definitely, he's averaging 28 minutes a game, but is playing a substantive amount. I think that certainly was increased on Saturday night with the Jaylen Brown injury, but it's not just the offensive production from Pritchard, which has been absolutely phenomenal. He knocked down another 6 threes on Saturday night after bouncing back from an 0-for on Friday. That was Peyton Pritchard, but he has now been updated. The Vegas has responded to this hot start from Peyton Pritchard. He is now the leader in the clubhouse for Sixth Man of the Year.
Wow.
And I didn't necessarily see that coming. I did say that 2 games into the season. I was willing to be very early on that bandwagon, but for the rest of the league to kind of take notice, he's just it's not just the 3-point shooting. He made a number of plays off the dribble, probing, getting to the rim, scoring some points there. He's just been he's a starter caliber player in the NBA at this point, and it just feels like such a luxury on such a talented Celtics team that has 4 or 5, 6 stars, depending if Kristaps is healthy. To have this guy be your 6th man is like ridiculous, and to get him at the contract that he's at, it's just it's just kind of absurd. It's a wealth. Absurdity of wealth. There's some sort of term I'm looking for that people would use. Embarrassment of riches.
There it is.
Got
like
it.
absurdity of wealth more.
Brought it home.
Like
Absurdity of wealth. Oh, but Peyton Pritchard, talk amongst yourselves.
First of all, I gotta start adding some sound effects on here. If I could have just tapped like a little applause thing, I'll get on that. That was well done. Sorry, B-Rob. Go ahead.
No. I just shot my friend Joe, who texted me, I think, before the Pacers game that he had got Pritchard at plus 6,000 for Sixth Man of the Year.
I think he's plus 600 right now.
Yeah, he's that's gone down in a hurry. So he's ahead of the curve on that one. I think the biggest question with Pritchard's was he get the minutes to be a serious name in this contract? We always know he has the talent to be, but if he's only playing 15 or 20 minutes per game, you're just not gonna be in the running for Sixth Man of the Year. If you're playing 28 minutes per game, then it's a different story, especially on this team. And so the fact that Hauser was out and he's gotten the extra shots from that's one part of it. But I do think there's a real case to be made being we don't want to run Drew Holiday into the ground. If we can keep Drew Holiday playing 25 to 30 minutes, keep him on the lessened Al Horford plan, if you will, and just have Pritchard, finish it out on nights when he's hot anyway, that's great. That's a win-win all around here. So the fact he's doing this over 7 games, sustaining it to this level, able to hold his own defensively, and just help out against those speedy guards, like you said, Packard. I think that's a big win. And that deal, you compare to what he signed for versus some of the deals that were handed out to guys on rookie extensions, and you're just wait, Pritchard is still going to be making under $10 million a year, and you've got these guys making 3 times more who have done nothing nearly as good as Peyton Pritchard in their career at this point. That's a pretty big deal for the Celtics going forward this decade.
And just the spacing he provides, he's is such a good fit around the stars, and makes that any offense that they play that much easier. And so if he's going to continue to make 4 or 5 threes a game, like he's going to keep deserving the minutes. I understand that like some injuries have made him like they more reliant on him, but he's been a major important piece of like this Celtics team. And one of the reasons they were so good last year is that their bench would beat other teams' bench lineups. There was no like let up that you had to play 48 great minutes against the Celtics. And I think he's a major part of that, where he can come in and still keep the offense going, even in moments where Tatum's on the bench or as we saw last night with Brown on the bench.
Doc Rivers is like, yeah, I circled his name before the game. It doesn't matter. And that's, I mean, part of that's the Bucks, and the Bucks can't defend anyone right now. But I also think a big part of that is now is like Pritchard, whenever he's on the floor, is always going to be the third or fourth option in other teams' minds on this team. And that is, his skill set puts him above that. And so even if you're treating him like that, like he can punish you as like, the second or third option. Is like that's how his career has progressed right now. And we'll see again if he can sustain it. I don't know if he'll start losing some shots when Hauser comes back now consistently, but it seems like Hauser isn't 100%. And now, I mean, we'll get to the Jaylen Brown injury in a second, but if he's got to be out for any length of time, like the opportunities are going to continue to be there for Pritchard.
Well, let's talk about this Jaylen Brown injury. He sat out Saturday night, second night of a back-to-back with a hip flexor. It's reportedly had been bothering him for, I guess, the earlier in the week. Not like I didn't necessarily see it from his performance, but he kind of called out himself, his own effort in that game against the Pacers. Maybe his shot was a little short on Friday night. Is this something to be concerned about? Just the Celtics resting guy on a second night of a back-to-back? What should be the thinking here as we assess this Jaylen Brown injury?
I think we'll find out, I think, on Monday. If he doesn't play in Atlanta, a place we know he really wants to play generally, I think that'll tell you that it's something that is not just a rest night against a bad team with Charlotte. But if you look at the numbers, guys, like he's shooting 40% from the field and 26% from three, and he looked pretty god-awful offensively in, like 2 of the last 3 or 4 games in this past week. So if it has been bothering for weeks and clearly it's impacting his performance, maybe like certainly from his shooting acumen, like then yeah, like this is especially a spot in the schedule to get rest games. Like they're playing plenty of bad teams here. So I don't know, it's bad enough. I guess his MRI will tell us if they're gonna sit him out for a bit just to get it right, or they might just manage it and say like, okay, yeah, take that Hawks game off when they're missing half their team anyway coming up Monday, and then I imagine he's going to want to play against Steve Kerr and the Warriors on Wednesday. But that we'll find out pretty quickly here based on how they handle the next couple games, how serious it is.
Yeah, and like I remember in his post game in Indiana, he was like, I didn't have my legs under me. It's really on me. I'm not generating the pop and the power that he wants to do. So like, it does track that like this would be an issue that he's been dealing with for a couple weeks.
I didn't realize he was shooting so poorly from the field. Like, and maybe that's not great numbers. I think it just goes to show you like the amount of talent that this Celtics team has, where they haven't played that many close games, and their second best, or according to Jason Kidd, their best player can be shooting so poorly, and it just doesn't seem like they really miss a beat. And it just goes to show you, one, Jason Tatum's having a phenomenal year to start the year. 2, Derek White and Drew Holiday are going to step up and just knock down shots. And then you have the luxury of someone like Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. The Celtics have a better offensive rating this year through, I think, 7 games than they did last year. And they have no Kristaps Porzingis, which is actually insane. That might just be like paces up. Offensive rating is like one of those things where it's just at this point does it really mean anything, because the game just keeps getting faster and faster. And so like, but it's still impressive because we're only talking about 1 year ago. It's not like there's been a drastic change. No matter what Nick Wright wants you to think, no matter what people think, the NBA is not ruined just because teams are playing faster and shooting more threes. But the Celtics have been very impressive, and that's with the Jaylen Brown shooting numbers that you mentioned earlier, B-Rob.
Right. And so that, I think, at the credit to, Tatum's been phenomenal. Peyton Pritchard, we already talked about. Drew Holiday shooting 51% from 3. Kind of under the radar there. And Derek White has been Derek White. And we didn't get to Mr. Perfect on Saturday night either. Luke Cornett deserves a shout out for his
Well, let's talk
19
about
points on 6 field goal attempts. Yeah, it's the centers. We need to talk about the centers because that's
the
like a
big
big
man
part of the
rotation. Yeah, I mean, Nemi had his moment. Nemi spurs the comeback.
Have you turned around on Nemi now? Where are you on Nemi, Packard?
I'm still Nemi hesitant. I'm still, but I'm approaching Nemi curious. He's giant. He's a giant individual. I just don't. I feel like I'm just being stubborn and don't want to go fully. But like he's really changed the energy in the fourth quarter against the Pacers. Like was a big part of that that comeback, 24-point comeback in the fourth quarter. Was just a giant body in which the Pacers went small and they could really make a difference on the offensive glass. Thought it was maybe just a situational thing, but boom, he's like one of the first bigs off the bench on Friday night when Al Horford's not starting, so Luke Cornett gets the start. He's
played crunch time on Saturday night too.
Crunch time in both, like pretty important minutes in both games. On Friday night, Nemi played 25 or 24 and a half minutes, 12 points. How many boards did he have? Yeah, only 6 boards. I expect more from my 7-foot tall man. No, but he's been playing pretty solid basketball. I thought it was like, do you think it was why Tillman didn't play at all on Friday night? Or do you think it was just like a rest thing where it's like, we're going to play him on Saturday, or it's a matchup issue?
Right. At first I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like you don't want to, given how much he gets hurt, maybe you don't want to play him on the back-to-backs anyway. But then he only played 3 minutes on Saturday night. So you're like, all right, this certainly is not.
Has Nemi surpassed him in the depth chart?
It's hard to argue it.
B-Rob, if you were making a depth chart right now, you're king of the depth chart. Would Nemi, where would rank the 3 backup centers?
Yeah, Nemi would be behind. Yeah, Nemi's behind. Like we saw it. It's one thing if you take Wednesday's night in a vacuum, but now you got against the Charlotte, and I do think it is going to be a matchup thing where there's certainly going to be certain times that Tillman makes more sense than a 7-footer, just in terms of his ability to switch defensively. But as far as regular season goes, like getting offensive rebounds, finishing at the rim, he's certainly far better than I think Cornett and Tillman finishing at the rim. And that's a big part of the equation here because there's going to be a lot of easy offensive putbacks for this team with the weapons they have around them.
Matchup base also makes sense because like the Hornets were tiny on Saturday,
right? Because
it's like every single center on their team is out, so it's like
yeah, Grant Williams at center.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it makes sense to go with Nemi because like he can just see over everyone on the opposing team right now.
He is a very physical presence, just like a rim deterrent. Naturally, just being that tall. I have not. Has he committed a goaltend this whole year? I don't think so. Now, has he done some traveling violations? Absolutely. But that's the Celtics' fault for giving him the ball, not just a lob or a dunk, but, giving it to him in the post. But I'm coming around on Nemi. I still think he's not the most skilled in terms of like pick and roll coverages, and I think teams will try to attack him. But for these moments, random games against the Pacers and the Hornets where you need to change the energy, he's certainly going to come in and give you I think his best assets are on the offensive end, offensive rebounding, keeping plays alive, much better finisher, like you said, than Cornett. Cornett is so good at getting the offensive rebound, but then his best after that, it's passing it out to the 3. It's not necessarily going back up with it. Now, I don't mean to say negative things about Cornett after he has 19 points on Saturday night. Here's the thing that's frustrating about Cornett. I've been predicting he's going to get a double-double for her 2.5 years now. Has he delivered once? On the night where he gets 19 points, he only gets 6 boards. Can you just have a more balanced game, Cornett, so I don't look like an idiot? But he's been playing phenomenal basketball. I just love Cornett's passing, especially in that short roll and in those offensive rebound situations. He seems to know exactly where the three-point shooter is going to be, and it feels like he fits in quite nicely with this Celtics offense. His basketball awareness IQ is through the roof right now, and I just think he's playing very, very solid basketball. And the Celtics it's wild that they have not missed Kristaps at all. I think you can say maybe in that Pacers series, and the Pacers went small and switched everything, they didn't have this like great option to kind of like post up a smaller player. I think we saw some of that against the Hornets with Cornette and maybe a little bit with Nimi, but to have these guys come in and just have it so the Celtics offense is not really missing a beat is something, frankly, I'm a little bit surprised by, but it's like a pleasant and welcome surprise.
Yeah, like you laid it out, like they have a better offense in 7 games this year than last year, and that's wild given that Porzingis has been not part of the equation. But Cornette, me, like everyone's just filling the role, and then we expected the continuity for this group to get better, which it has. And now on top of that, you just have the natural growth of a lot of these players across the lineup. And Al Horford is Al Horford, and you play him 20 minutes a night, but there's no apparent drop off there. Same with Drew. So we'll see what it looks like when Porzingis comes back. But the fact of the matter is that losing him right now has hurt them more defensively than offensively. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. I think if Porzingis comes back and they're still playing like this, like when he comes back, they're just never going to play a full roster for the rest of the regular season. It'll just be a rotation of new guys, gets a different night off, except for Tatum because he refuses to do that, which I respect him for. But why not at this point? Just like keep guys healthy. It's an absurdity of wealth that the Celtics have in terms of their roster depth. Basketball is back in the TD Garden, folks, and it is a perfect opportunity to get tickets to see the Celtics go for Banner 19. I know I'm going to miss being in that building, and so do it for me. Go to TD Garden or go to a whole sort of events going around in the Boston area or wherever you're listening to a podcast. The best way to do that is through the Game Time app. Game Time app is the best way to get tickets on the interwebs. You can get it for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. It's got all-in pricing and shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get seat views with panoramic views from where your seat will be in the app before you buy. There's a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you up to 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. The other end of the spectrum, I'll give you guys the choice. Which embarrassing Eastern Conference franchise would you like to discuss first? The Milwaukee Bucks or my hometown, Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, you've got cowboy boots on the ground there, I imagine. So that's good.
I do. Well, last night the tweets were flying in at the party, and what
was the Philly vibe at the party when this happened?
The first report was that Embiid used a trident against a reporter in the locker room, you know. And then it quickly came out that he just punched him. Then that tweet was quickly deleted. No, it was just a shove.
Just a casual shove. Just a
casual shove in the locker room. Then we learned who the reporter was, and everyone, all the Philly fans were like, that guy sucks. That guy is one of the biggest trolls in the market for 30 years now. He wrote an article basically questioning Joel Embiid's desire to play basketball, for having missed the start of the season and doing this ramp up. And as the Philly fans around me pointed out, Joel played with a broken face and Bell's palsy, and the question has never been Joel Embiid's desire to play basketball, because clearly he's played hurt a number of times. The problem was the guy wrote that article with the lead to the story being this sets a poor example for your dead brother you're trying to honor and the son you named him afterwards. And it was so egregious that that was in the that made the print version of the Inquirer, but then everyone was you didn't need to say that. And then they got taken out. Embiid said, I've done too much for the city on Friday. And then we get a shoving match in the locker room on Saturday. I will say, if you're 7 feet tall, over 300 pounds, you probably shouldn't be putting your hands on anyone. Because I've been in these locker rooms. B-Rob, you've been in these locker rooms. The players are much bigger than us. And any sort of interpersonal violence, there's no way that ends well. That's all I'm saying. It's not a positive decision tree to go down that route. I understand his frustration with that specific columnist, but you probably shouldn't put your hands on a journalist or anyone really in the locker room.
In front of everyone in the locker room, in front of all the other. Well, here's the question now: does the NBA clearly there's going to be action taken? Do they
investigation number 2 has been opened up against the Sixers.
We're 6 games. Yeah, not great for the Sixers, who again they lost at home to the Grizzlies. They're 1-4 now. Paul George may or may not be returning soon, but does the NBA be like, listen, we're going to fine you like mid 6 figures, like a hefty fine, and suspend you? Or do they say, like, listen,
if they suspend him, they're just helping him with his ramp up process. Like they have to wait till he gets back.
I'm ready to go. That's a good point, Packard. So they have it out there. Or do they
reverse suspension? They're like, you have to play this.
You have to. Perfect, Sean. Yes, it's like you have to play tonight. See what it looks like, and then I'll say you back. Or did the NBA just be like, look at the column that this guy wrote, being like, well, you know what, we're just gonna fine you. We're not gonna spend you for that because that guy, he probably had to come in a little bit to bring up your dead brother and your son for something like that. Yeah, I'm not. Listen, MB needs to be smarter than putting a hands on it. Like, just common sense 101. I know you're heated. Like this has been out there for a few days. Like, just like mouth off at him, but you can't like be smart about it. But yeah, it's on like, unfortunately for Sixers, I think it's down on the priority list of like what's wrong with this team right now, because it's like it just looks like the pieces that Morey assembled to put around these guys, even when they do come back, like, are they going to turn from a 1-4 team to like back to a contender? I don't know if you have everyone else in this team outside of Maxey who can't hit threes anymore, like looking like replacement level players.
I've been too Philadelphia pilled. I've just been eating too many hoagies, but I do think adding Paul George and Joel Embiid to the lineup will be helpful for the on-court product. And maybe this is just like the exact type of adversity they need to galvanize the team. It's us against the world. They take turns assaulting a different member of the journalism staff before or after every game. It's always interesting to me because, like, growing up in Boston sports talk radio, and B-Rob, I'm sure you heard this a lot, is like, well, if you're going to say that on the radio, you got to be in the locker room and be accountable to the players. Never did people think that means like, well, you got to fist fight the players after the game when you say things. But when you're saying like kind of slanderous stuff, like, I guess credit the guy for showing up in the locker room. But also the initial reporting of it, like he was like unnamed Sixers reporter said he was punched and then deleted that tweet within like 2 minutes. So I'm just imagining the Sixers PR team was like, get that. He was not punched. You got to delete that tweet immediately. Like, what are you doing? And apparently that reporter wasn't even in the locker room. He was just doing secondhand news about reporting on it. And I trust Sixers Adam. He writes for the Philly Voice. He was in there. He gave his eyewitness account, although we should all be suspect of eyewitness testimony. It's very flawed. That's a courtroom aside there. But it sounds like he just put his hand on his shoulder. He stumbled back a bit. It wasn't like a dramatic act of assault as was initially described, but things are not going well in Philadelphia. It's not always sunny. It's foggy at best with rain clouds swirling.
And yet they have a better record than the Bucks.
Yet they have a better record than the Milwaukee Bucks. See, here's the thing. I feel like the 76ers have this built-in excuse that we don't have Joel Embiid, we don't have Paul George, we haven't been able to put our best foot forward. What excuse do the Bucks have? Because the Bucks have had Giannis and Dame there for every game, and both those guys have kind of been balling, putting up more than 30 points a game, and it just hasn't mattered because they cannot play defense whatsoever. That being said, they played the Cavs, lost on a Donovan Mitchell buzzer beater, so they played a close game against the Cavs, who are apparently the best team in the Eastern Conference, starting the season 7-0. And so maybe that there's some hope there for the Bucks. But if you just look at the roster, I don't know what they don't have a Joel Embiid coming back. They don't have a Paul George coming back. They just have to keep trying to figure this out with a guy. And is Chris Middleton like really the answer to everything? I guess it means maybe if you don't have to play Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince 40 minutes a game, but you're still going to have to play one of those guys serious minutes. And so I was wrong. Hand up, I was wrong. I was I thought people were really overly negative on the Bucks going into the year because I kind of believed that Giannis and Dame would put it together. We heard all this propaganda about how Dame was in the best shape of his life. I thought that would maybe do something, but it turns out you still need to play defense in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, Dame, he can score now, but we know defense is what it is, has been for his entire career. Now he's going into his 30s. It's just going to get worse and worse in a hurry for him there. But the biggest thing now, it's like all their role players have just fallen off a cliff. Like Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. Like Connaughton used to be a pain in the ass, and now he's just like getting played off the floor like night after night. Like he can't stop anyone. And you blame, I think you to blame the GM for just terrible roster, like not seeing this coming, not seeing a bunch of aging guys, like not trying to address this, like trading away your best defensive player for Dame Lillard and not having a good backup plan in place for it. But now I don't know what they do here, guys, because they've used all their draft capital already on all these deals over the years, and Chris Middleton's coming back. But that's going to get them back to like 500. Like you're going into such a big hole so early in the season right now. And no one's going to want these players like role play, like the trades that they could have traded them last season when they still had some value. Now these guys, like who wants them now? No one. And so that now you're kind of stuck.
I mean, you've also got Giannis teasing a trade for himself. I don't know if you have seen these quotes from him, but he's like he started the season being like, and you never know if this doesn't go well, I could get traded. Maybe that's their issue. Is that's
such a humble way to make a trade request?
Yeah,
it's like who knows? Really they could trade me.
The guy they made the Dame Lillard trade for, so I signed the super show. They're gonna move me before they have to. Yeah. But it sets them up well to play that card here, and they won't do that this season. Like all these rumors are kind of like no, there's 0.0% chance that Giannis gets moved during this year, but in the summer, all bets, like if they completely flame out, all bets are off.
So good news, I think generally for the Celtics. If you're looking at their Eastern Conference rivals, the Knicks not playing that well. I guess we don't have to talk about the Cavs, but the Cavs are looking to be the biggest competition for the Celtics in the East. The Celtics already a full game back. This would have never happened last year when we won the conference by 14 games. And so you can't lose to the Pacers, Celtics. It's just it's too bad. We're going to have to play better. But looking forward to that first Cav game. Unless you guys got anything else, I think it's time for segments.
Hell yeah.
Do we want stats now or do you want stats in segments?
Stats will be a segment.
There we go. Let's go. Beautiful.
Well, let's first start off with Moment of the Week. For the audio listeners, you have to imagine us going Moment of the Week over that sweet music. Taking nominations now for Moment of the Week. We have, this is on the spreadsheet. Jay King also did not add anything to it, despite ample opportunity. So we'll see his that. Traveling back to the Monday game, Derek White's block on Giannis, I thought was pretty cool. Then we had a Joe Mazzulla's very furious tech. He actually had two techs this week, but one was a furious tech where he had to be held back by multiple assistant coaches. We have the Nemi's dunk on Miles Bridges towards the end of that game on Friday night. All good nominations. I don't know. We just made up Moment of the Week last week, so there's clearly no rules if it has to be a positive moment or a negative moment. But I think the thing that's going to stick out for this week is Grant Williams truck sticky Jason Tatum. Like I don't know.
That's my vote.
Like there's really nothing that can top that. And so
if they want to come back against the Pacers, I think that like maybe Tatum hitting the three to force over like again, but that kind of gets lost now since they lost in overtime. But yeah, the story of this week is Grant ruining his future business endeavors in Boston.
And I'm going to give a little sub moment of the week to Derek White shoving Grant in retaliation, because that was shocking, and I didn't necessarily think that was going to happen. And so congrats to Grant Williams. The only thing he won this week was the Still Poddable free episode moment of the week. Moving on to segment 2. Shit Joe says. This is where we break down the craziest things that Joe Mazzulla has said this week, and boy, do we have a doozy. Now, maybe we've talked about this. We got to talk about it again. Joe Mazzulla was on the 98.5, the Sports Hub, in his weekly appearance with
Zolak and Bertrand.
Zolak and Bertrand. Nice assist there. 98.5 Sports Hub employee. And he was asked about what he wanted to change about the game. And first, he brought up a power play situation, which is just has gotten completely overwhelmed because the second part of his quote was just got a little bit crazier. But I think we deserve to focus on what if he was just like, yeah, what if we just have 3-second power plays? And I think that would be fascinating because, like, imagine the crazy plays that NBA coaches would draw up, knowing that they had a 5-4 advantage, but it was like a very quick 5-4 advantage where you have this guy sprinting back into the play. I love that idea. And I don't think people are talking enough about, like, sure, if that happened on a take foul and you don't, like, why? I thought that was genius. I thought it would be like I think it'd be a very exciting play, and just like a whole nother facet of the game is like, oh, how is this team's power play? Who's the best at drawing up the power play? It brings up all this kind of hockey conversation of like, oh, who's the best penalty kill situation? Like, what defenses can you play for that? It just creates this whole new strategic element that I wasn't prepared for. And I did want to highlight that because I think it got lost because then Joe Mazzulla was advocating violence in the second part of his quote.
No, it's a good point. And like 3 seconds is so much longer in basketball than I feel like we give it credit for. But like, you very rarely see a 3-second like paint violation called, and I feel like part of that is because no one cares, but part of it's because it doesn't actually happen that much. And like 3 seconds is a lot of time off of like an inbound, and it could make for some exciting stuff.
Throw in the G League, just like doing the G League All-Star game, do something like I just want to see this in action now, because the chaos it could form, like to your point, Packard, would be phenomenal, and we're never gonna really see it, but it certainly could spice things up in less than not the to be top level here.
Speaking of spicing things up, unprompted. So he was just asked about rule changes, and Joe says, quote, "The biggest thing that we rob people of from an entertainment standpoint is you can't fight anymore. I wish we would bring back fighting. What's more entertaining than a little scuffle? How come in baseball they're allowed to clear the benches? How come in hockey they're allowed to fight? I don't understand. I just don't get why some sports are allowed to clear the benches. They have bats and weapons in baseball. We don't. We have a ball. The other sport, hockey, has one of the hardest playing surfaces and a puck and a stick, and yet we're not allowed to throw down a little bit." Now, I've heard some people be like, hey, Joe Mazzulla, do you remember the Malice in the Palace? And I think that is a bad thing to say, because the problem with the Malice in the Palace wasn't the fighting amongst the players. It was the fighting amongst the players against the fans. If you keep the combat to the hardwood, that's what people love. That apparently that would, like, people hate 3-pointers. They love watching like the Knicks and Heat beat the shit out of each other with Jeff Van Gundy hanging on Alonzo Mourning's leg. So maybe he's on to something here. I just think we will file this under the least surprising quote from Joe Mazzulla we've ever heard.
Yeah, I was listening to Grandy and Max. I caught the Saturday night game on the radio first. I was like coming home, and Joe goes on that show before every game, and in that interview he kind of clarified a bit too. He was like, it sounds like basically what he's talking about is that like when you over police the game, in his words, I'm pretty sure, like with the technical fouls and the flagrants, he was like, you kind of let people get away with shit in a way that they wouldn't if I could just hit you in the face for it. Like if there's like a crazy hard foul, like that guy knows he's gonna get hard fouled. Whereas
very interesting, like, in the context of the Grant right. Truck stick. Basically, he's like, a flagrant 2 wasn't enough for Grant. We should have been able to punch him in the face, and then he would never have done it again.
Yeah, and like also you kind of I don't know, in my head, like you ease the tension a bit, right? Like if Grant gets run over on the next play, well, it's done now. Grant ran over Tatum. Now Grant got ran over, and we're good. It's like hitting a batter in a pitch. You know, when you're a pitcher in baseball, it's like, great, you were an asshole. You did something I didn't like. I'm gonna hit you in the back. We're moving on. We're done.
B-Rob, are you pro or anti-violence? Take a stance, fine, for once and for all.
Very much pro. No, it is. I see what Joe, like when Joe clarifies it, it makes even more sense of being like, all right, he just doesn't want, like, you don't want to look at like 3-minute reviews for a borderline flagrant one. Like over policing, I think, is the thing he hates right now. And people just like nostalgia, period. Like everyone loves watching those old, Jeff Van Gundy hanging off of like Alonzo Mourning's leg or something like that, or whatever from the old fight. Like, and then like that's the stuff that we don't see much of anymore. And over policing, I guess, has sort of been thinking, but I don't know. Maybe it's a byproduct of this just generation too. Like they just guys don't have that level of animosity anymore. But it is. I'd like to see more. It would be certainly from an entertainment standpoint, from a coverage standpoint. Give me more. Give me all that. Give me all the beefs you can get, because that's what we need right now. Like the Grant stuff on Friday night was great.
Also, in over policing, like we'll always remember that. What was it, Suns Spurs series where people got texts for coming off the bench? Like that's another thing where it's like, if there's a brouhaha, let the fellas in. Like let them at least jump in and like protect their favor. Like don't like necessarily call someone that. Like players in Major League Baseball are allowed to come off the bench, and you always have like the kind of out of shape bullpen catcher trotting in from the bullpen. That's good old fashioned fun. Like obviously Al Horford's not going to come in. Maybe he will throw like a flying leg kick, but like, you know what? They like to see him get in the mix, and it shouldn't be just limited to the guys on the court. Like, what if Jaylen was on the bench for that Grant foul? He wouldn't have been able to run in and confront Grant. And I do like that Jaylen. Someone put together like a supercut of all the time Jaylen has run in to try and defend JT. And I do like that Jaylen. I think is kind of de facto enforcer on this team, because there's not a lot of other guys who I guess has as much edge as Jaylen does. And I saw a bunch of comments about that, like Joe Mazzulla doesn't want these Celtics to be fighting because like no one on the Celtics will be fighting. No, Joe Mazzulla wants to fight. Like he's there.
He's their guy.
He was there out there blocking shots, after timeouts earlier in the year. I would like to let him like throw a hard shoulder into a guy. I think it's fine. Do
you guys remember that knee scuffle like a couple years ago where like they were fighting for a loose ball out of bounds?
Yeah.
He has that. This is what Joe lives for, and so
there was also that time like Robb had to hold him back. Like 2 seasons ago, Robert Williams was like holding him back because he was like getting into an argument with a player in the other team. It was like getting ready to go fight with him. Yeah.
Yes.
Joe Mazzulla wants to fight. I love it. I'm here for it.
All right, B-Rob. We don't have graphics or music, but stats now from B-Rob.
All right, so we got 5 stats here to open up just to keep the perspective. And we'll play a little game of it. So Peyton Pritchard, 3-point attempts per 36 minutes. Where do you guys believe he ranks in the NBA right now?
4th.
I'm gonna say 3rd.
Sean gets it. We got 3rd with 12.2 3-point attempts per 36 minutes. That is getting him up, and he's still hitting over 40%. So that is music to Joe Mazzulla's ears. Keeping up the 3-point attempts, Jason Tatum, where does he rank right now in just not per 36, but 3-point attempts per game?
He's also getting him up there because he had 18 in one game. I'm going to say 6th.
I'm going to go wait. I'm going to say 2nd.
Split the difference. 4th.
Okay.
4th for Tatum. He is taking 11.3 per game. And the very weird 3 he's behind. Not 2, but LaMelo. Anthony Edwards. 2nd in the league in 3-point attempts now. And Maxey are the only 3 guys ahead of him for 3-point attempts per game. Jaylen Brown. Field goal attempts per game. Where does Jaylen Brown rank in the NBA right now? Field goal attempts per game.
if this is high and he's shooting 40%, that's not a good combination. Fourth?
I'm gonna say.
And he doesn't take. Does he take that many shots? Like Luka and people like that exist. It's got to. I retract that. 12th.
I was gonna say like 18th.
Oh my God, Packard. Packard had it.
Fourth. He's fourth.
He is fourth. What a move by Packard to have it.
It was so absurd.
Go over your gut, Packard. 21.7 field goal attempts per game.
Behind
Fourth
who?
in the NBA. I did not get the list there. I think Anthony Edwards is certainly on there. I think LaMelo too. I'll look it up in a second. But yeah, fourth. So that is a problem for Jaylen Brown. I do not think that's a good stat for a guy shooting 40% from the field. And I think it is kind of indicative of him of maybe it was because of injury, but I think he got in some bad habits in some of these games of like taking too many contested twos or just wild twos again. And as well, 3-point shot not falling. But just something to keep an eye on there. Jaylen's getting him up, not getting him up as many threes as the other guys, but certainly getting the shots up. And that hasn't necessarily been a good thing for the Celtics offense. All right. Nimi, where does he rank among rotation players in offensive rebounds per 36 minutes in the NBA?
You're going to tell me first, aren't you? This is part of your Nimi agenda.
I'm going to go 5th.
Sean, gets it again. 5th.
You told me to go with my gut.
Your gut was wrong.
Your gut is only right once. 5.7 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes for Nimi. Up there with some pretty limbering bigs. So that is pretty good news for him, given what he's doing on finishing there and what he's been able to hold his own defensively. And last but not least, Al Horford. Where does he rank in free throw attempts per game in the NBA right now?
Dead last.
I'm going to agree with that one.
Has he attempted a free throw?
He has not attempted, as you guys both got it. He has attempted 0 free throws in 152 minutes. That is, yes, tied for last with, I think, a bunch of other people. I do not believe many other people have taken more than who have played 152 minutes have not taken a free throw. I think there may be some out there, but I did not want to look them up. So Al is doing a great job of not getting too much in the fray. And I think the double bigs alongside Al will continue because they should be protecting Al Horford at all costs here.
I got one more stat, and it's how many 2-pointers per game is Sam Hauser averaging? And it's 1. Averaging 1.5 takes per game, 1 make a game, shooting 66 or 67% on twos. And I just wanted to put it out there. 4 games, 4 2-pointers. I think that the over-under Jay and I set was about 50, so he's blowing past that. So I just thought we had to keep everyone accountable in that regard.
You might have to get into his ear at a game, Packard in Philly or something like that. Just let Sam know. Be like, hey, man,
Hey, Jay King, that guy specifically didn't think you could do it. He also said some disparaging things about your brother and your son, and you should probably shove him. We're going to finish this off with the most absurd segment in sports, the Still Poddable Still. And today, a submission from Peyton Pritchard, walking into the game, I believe on third, or I don't even know where it was, but I've been calling him Sam Hauser and Luke Cornett the Caucasian nesting dolls. But no, he has come up with a new nickname, just a brilliant T-shirt, the 3 of them on it, Tres Leches, which is a fantastic nickname, much better than mine. But I have a better nickname suggestion after Tres Leches. Tres Leches, of course, is Spanish for it's a famous cake. You know, people have a Tres Leches cake, but I'm pretty sure that just means 3 milks. And so that's the nickname we're going with. 3 milks, but put that on a T-shirt. If that was the same exact T-shirt, but instead of said Tres Leches, it just said 3 milks, that would sell. People would buy a 3 milks T-shirt.
I hadn't seen that yet. I think that was at the Garden. It must have been Monday night. Pritchard is kind of getting I think embracing the media game even more. So like he's starting to send out more videos, like self-made videos and stuff. So now he's got that. He's got maybe
He
some of his own
staged
merch
that
coming.
event where he was playing pickup against those kids.
Yeah, right. If that was a plant there, then like what a move. That would be the move of all moves because no one sniffed that one out. He got his wife to take that from afar. No, but it is. It's I think Pritchard might be realizing here how much of a hero he is to like 6-foot Bostonians everywhere. That dreamed of putting up 12 threes a game or whatever in the NBA and is fully maybe embracing it now, which is, I think, a smart move by him.
So look out for the 3 Milks shirt that we're going to have to create. And Sean also came up with a great T-shirt idea. I'm not going to reveal it here because I want us to actually make this shirt. I don't know if we're actually going to make a 3 Milks T-shirt, but we're going to wait. But it's just a great recent events. Look out for some Still Poddable merch. You can also get just the normal Still Poddable merch that somehow Jay King records every episode in. Somehow he's always in a new Still Poddable t-shirt. So look out for that. Look out if you enjoyed this podcast and you're listening for free on the CLNS feed and you want more Still Poddable, including post-game podcasts or more access from the beat from Jay and from B-Rob, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. Become a member today. We got tons of great content. We got the chat that is popping off. We got people posting pics of meeting Jay King in Charlotte. You too could take a selfie with Jay King in an NBA city of your choosing, or B-Rob. Please don't approach me in public, especially not with this handlebar mustache. But it's a very fun community, so highly encourage everyone to sign up, give it a try. It's definitely be worth your time and effort. Appreciate Sean for joining us. Appreciate you, B-Rob, and appreciate everyone for listening. We'll be back the rest of the week with more Still Poddable.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable. The Boston Celtics Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Oh, yeah.
Slow down from eating and drinking and all that wild stuff.